10 inside sales tips that will transform your game. Each of these tips you can incorporate. These are very practical, easy to implement tips, regardless of your sales skills, your level of experience, your personality style. You can implement these immediately, and you can implement these without spending any money on any other tools or any of our tools that we sell. So you could, in reality, implement these starting tomorrow, and you'll actually see an immediate improvement tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you that you will sell more tomorrow by using these for one day, but the amount of effort that you put in for tomorrow, you will be more productive and you will get more results in that amount of time. And then if you expand that over a longer period of time, you will improve your overall results. Your job will be easier, you'll be happier, and whatnot. So let's get started. Let's just go through each tip one at a time. All right, so tip one, try to do everything you can to avoid sounding like a salesperson trying to sell something. We say this a lot in what we preach here at Sales Scripter. You may think, well, but I am a salesperson, or how can I do that because I am trying to sell something? Well, let me just give you an example. And this is actually an email that I've received in the past 24 hours. This is easy to demonstrate in an email, but this same flow and type of impression and presentation also takes place on outbound phone prospecting calls. I hope you're doing well today. I'll keep this short and to the point. So I'll keep this short and to the point. Clearly, that's somebody who's trying to sell something. You know, if you were trying to figure out if you had a bag of money that was lost and you were trying to figure out who the money belonged to, would you reach out to them and reach out to people and say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going to only bother you for a minute. I'm going to keep it short. You wouldn't say that. You would say, hey, is this money yours? You know, so I don't like that. I'll keep it short, or I won't take too much of your time, or I know you're busy. It's very weak language. So let me continue forward. We recently launched insert product name after 3 years of development. Okay, I don't care. Who cares? Why are you telling me this? First of all, I'm the prospect in this. So I don't care about their business and their product development. I care about my business and what I can do today to get things better. Or if I'm an individual consumer, I care about my personal finances and my family, and whatnot. It's a total game changer. Okay, great, good for you. Basically, insert product name uses, and then he goes on to explain something. It's a self-service platform unlike anything you may have seen. Okay, whatever. The kicker is that our service is inexpensive and fast. Okay. Do you have time this week for a quick call or demo to discuss how we can help you? Okay, he's saying how we can help you, but he's really saying how I can sell to you what I want to sell to you. Anyways, the key takeaway here is salesperson trying to sell something. I'm a business owner. I get a lot of, well, let me advance to the next slides to show you why this is not good. So you should understand and be aware of the prospect that you're trying to reach. Your prospects are extremely busy. They are, running a business, running a team, making decisions. Hopefully you're prospecting at a decision maker level. And the key thing here is they get a lot of sales calls. I'm going to use an analogy here that might land and resonate with some of you, but it might land flat on part of you. But there's a lot of parallels between selling and dating. And if you take a guy or a woman that's, let's say, at a bar, this usually works better with a woman because it's usually men that pursue women in social settings. But take a woman who is, let's say, catching the eye of a lot of men. And this is equivalent to an executive or a decision maker, because those individuals catch the eye from a title and position organization standpoint of a lot of salespeople. So this woman that is catching the eye of a lot of men in a social setting, let's say a bar or a club or whatever, a lot of men will pursue this woman and try to introduce themselves. Well, this is the same thing as a lot of salespeople pursuing a prospect. When you get this barrage of salespeople, well, let's say in the social setting, if you're the next person that's going to make an introduction to this person who's already been introduced to a lot, you're going to be drowned out. You're going to look like all the rest, and this person is going to start to be annoyed by all these people that are pursuing them. It's the same thing in sales. There are a number of emails coming in and phone calls coming in. So what this does is it makes your prospect very guarded and annoyed. If you call them and you sound like a salesperson trying to sell something, they're going to start to get annoyed with you. And this is what creates that uncomfortable situation that makes phone prospecting extremely difficult for you, because you're starting to deal with prospects that are annoyed, and then you get in these uncomfortable situations and you don't enjoy your job, and then you're not making as many calls as you would like. So it's a downward spiral. One thing you can do to make this easier is to just avoid sounding like a salesperson. So how are we going to do that? There's a few things you can do. Now, you are a salesperson, but you can try to do what you can to present yourself more as a business person. Now, this person that sent me that email that I showed you an example of, listen, I know they represent a company, and I'm interested in solutions that are going to help me to make more money and help my business to grow and make my job easier. But I can't get there yet if you're being drowned out by looking like a salesperson and you're getting mixed in with all the other salespeople that I don't have time to deal with. Try to sound like a business person, and you can do this by minimizing the company and product discussion that you make in your emails and in your phone prospecting calls. By the way, our whole sales methodology, and I'm going to show you some tips here that will make you sound less like a salesperson. But our whole methodology is designed to make you sound, it's a consultative selling sales methodology. So if you want to learn more about the how with this tip, explore some of the other content that we have out there. But I want you to focus more on the prospect than on you. A salesperson typically often has an all about me approach. I want to talk to you about my company, I want to talk to you about my product, and I want to try to sell my product to you. A salesperson has the interest of selling their product and making commission. A prospect has an interest of growing their business, making their life better, making their life easier. Those interests do not overlap. Those are two totally different interests. A business person can achieve both. They are more focused on helping that prospect to achieve their goals, and as a secondary goal, even knowing it is their primary goal, in return they're going to end up selling their product. So have more of an emphasis that's all about the prospect, and we'll talk a little bit about how to do that today. Do a soft takeaway. That's a tip I'm going to talk about here today. And that's actually going to be tip 3. So tip number 2, moving on, is to deliver an elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is basically 1 to 2 sentences that communicates how you help your clients. So this is something you could deliver in your prospecting email when you're working in inside sales. Inside sales often gets associated with doing stuff over the phone, but as you know, email is an integral piece of your job and your task, so how you perform your job. So you could deliver your elevator pitch in your email. Now, if I go back to that email example where that prospect told me about his company, told me about developing his product for 3 years, told me about how his product works and whatnot, that's all about the product. That's not an elevator pitch. That is a product description. He's describing and explaining his product to me. An elevator pitch communicates how you help. So this is more focused on it's more aligned with your value proposition. So your elevator pitch could be your value statement. It could be come at it from another angle where you focus more on the problems that you help to fix, and or it could be an explanation, a quick explanation of how you've helped someone else. So on a lot of these slides, a lot of these tips, I'm going to go through, like I said, in just a couple minutes, and just spend just a couple minutes on them. But there's a whole training module, in most cases, aligned with each of these tips. So see here on this slide in red text, I'm directing you to a full training module that will help you with this tip. Building a value proposition that generates leads, so I encourage you to check that out. By the way, I told you that you can incorporate all these tips without buying any tools from anyone else or us. But we do have a software application called SalesScripter, which you may or may not be aware of. So the software is going to actually help you to go through the process of identifying the value that you offer and help you to turn that into creating your elevator pitch. And what that ends up looking like when you go through that sort of discovery, the end result, and here's like a tool that this is a part of a script that SalesScripter produces, but you can see here this document has this phone script has the value statement as the elevator pitch. So has choose from one of below, and below. By the way, this is my pitch for salespeople. My elevator pitch, could be I could choose from one of these, but hey, the reason why I'm reaching out to you is that we help salespeople to have more success when cold calling and prospecting. So I just picked one of those points there. I could use that same sentence to open up an email. The elevator pitch can be really focusing on the value that you offer is one way to get away from talking about your products, because you might say, well, how do I not talk about my products? What else am I going to talk about? Well, instead of talking about your products, talk about the value that your products offer. So here's actually an example of an email template that SalesScripter spits out that focuses on the value. So hello, Mrs. Prospect. To quickly introduce myself, I'm with SalesScripter, and we help salespeople to, and then I have here in bullet points all the value points that I list. Now, these are ways that I'm going to help this prospect. So this should stand to grab their attention a little bit easier, and compare this to that example that I showed you. I kind of went through that example reading it as a prospect would. And I was kind of joking around by saying, who cares? Now, think back. That email talked about developing the product for 3 years. I don't care. Talked about the product is inexpensive and fast, whatever. I don't even know what the product is or does at this point. So, you're telling me these details at the wrong place. What that person should do is tell me whatever they have, tell me how I stand to benefit from it. Keep in mind the saying of what's in it for me. So what's in it for me? That salesperson, when they talked about their product, did not communicate what's in it for me. This email communicates what's in it for me. I do want to point out that I was looking at the registration for this webinar, and it was a lot of salespeople. And on a lot of our webinars, I often have sales managers. Now, notice this email is designed for when I sell to salespeople. So it's a little confusing because this is actually a pitch for SalesScripter, which is the tool that's being used to create this. But my pitch changes when I change the audience from salespeople to sales managers. Even knowing the product works exactly the same, these benefits change. Like a sales manager, I help them to train their salespeople quicker, shorten ramp-up time, decrease turnover, get underperforming people to be performing. A salesperson doesn't care about those benefits. Where I'm going with this is that this email will look slightly different when I change from one buyer to another, and SalesScripter kind of helps you to create those different buyer persona campaigns. But I just want to point that out, that your elevator pitch and your benefits slightly change when you change your buyer. But let me move on for time purposes. Tip number 3 is to perform a soft takeaway. And the first tip I shared with you was to not sound like a salesperson. This is going to be a really effective and quick tactic that you can use to sound more like a business person than a salesperson. It's basically taking away what you're trying to sell. And I call it a soft takeaway because a firm takeaway is where, let's say you're in a deep discussion with a prospect and you might tell them, hey, you know what, this probably isn't a good fit for you. And so you kind of take it away. And so there's a time and a place when you do that. But a soft takeaway is just to express a little doubt that the prospect might not fit, and it's great to do at the very beginning of a phone prospecting call. So I have up here a script from SalesScripter, and so let me just kind of show you how this works when you put it together. The place that this goes is right after your elevator pitch. So let's say I call you and hey, great. The purpose for my call is we actually We actually work with salespeople, and we make it easy for them to consistently hit and exceed their sales targets and objectives. But you know what? I mean, I'm not sure if we're a really good fit for what your needs are, so that's why I was calling you with just a couple questions. And so I'll pause right there. The soft takeaway is that last part. I don't know if you need what we provide, or I don't know if you're the right person to speak with, or I don't know if we're a good fit for you guys, or I don't know if we can help you in the same way that I help other salespeople. That's an extremely powerful thing to do, and the reason why is because salespeople will typically do the exact opposite. You're basically telling someone that they don't fit. A salesperson usually will just nonstop tell the prospect that they're going to love it, they need it, they should buy it, and they're always pushing forward. You're actually pulling back a little bit, and this is an extremely powerful thing for you to do right at the beginning of a call. This is where you begin to sound like a business person instead of like a salesperson. It'll decrease the guardedness. Now, by the way, this isn't going to make someone pull out their credit card, but it's these small things that totally transform the impression that you make. Moving on. Tip number 4, have a list at all times of pre-qualifying questions that you should be asking the particular buyer that you're reaching out to. But by the way, we operate with a core principle of the best salesperson is the one that asks the best questions. So a lot of times sales managers or salespeople are often thinking, what can I say? How can I describe my product to create the most interest? And how can I be a better closer and be more aggressive and more firm? We don't subscribe to those desires or that school of thought. We think that the way that you become the best salesperson is not by describing your product in the best way or being the most gregarious person or most aggressive. It's about asking the best questions. And pre-qualifying questions are basically probing questions that you ask to learn more about what's going on the prospect side in the particular area that you operate or have something to offer or that you can impact. Now notice, like a lot of salespeople might think a great probing sales question is what keeps you up at night. I actually think that's a horrible sales question. And the reason why is because it's so broad. What if you sell HR services and you ask a prospect what keeps them up at night and they start talking to you about engineering issues? Well, you've just taken the conversation in a bad direction. So the good questions are the ones that really drill into the area that you have something to offer. So the reason why this can transform your efforts, here are a couple things. It's going to make calls more conversational. I get sales calls all the time, and the salesperson's just in there talking away. Sometimes I've even stopped listening, and they're just going on and on talking. So this is if you ask more questions, you're going to make it more engaging. In addition, if you ask questions and the prospect answers your questions, you're going to extract information. And if your questions are designed correctly, you might extract valuable information. If you design your questions to be pre-qualifying questions, you're going to pre-qualify the prospect to determine if it makes sense to keep talking. You might be calling to schedule appointments, but why would you schedule an appointment with someone who doesn't fit at all with what you have to offer? Your time's extremely valuable. You need to protect it. Asking good questions will also improve the impression you make. Again, you're going to sound more like a consultant than someone who's just a pushy salesperson. Again, there's a training module, Sell More by Screening the Good Prospects from Bad. This module on YouTube goes into building your questions. But here are some steps, because you may hear that and go, yeah, I agree, I should ask more questions. But you could realistically end up at a place where you don't know what questions to ask. So here are 4 steps that you can go through to develop your optimum list of questions. Identify the product that you want to sell. Keeping in mind, we're not going to talk about the product, but we start with the product. Identify the benefits that product offers the particular buyer that you're going to be talking to. I mentioned a minute ago about buyer personas, and when I change from selling my product from salespeople to sales managers, my pitch changes. It's at number 2 where the change in the road changes when you go from one buyer to another, because the benefits that you offer different buyers could change. And so that's going to change steps 3 and 4. Step 3 is to identify the pain points that each benefit fixes. So in theory, if you help someone to improve something, then there should be some sort of problem that will help to decrease, avoid, or minimize, or resolve. And so for each benefit, there could be one or more corresponding pain points for each benefit. So we're kind of going through the structured, logical workflow. Now, at the end of step 3, you have a list of pain points that you can fix. Well, to determine if a prospect is worth your valuable time, you should try to figure out if they have any of those problems. If you have a prospect and they're willing to meet with you, but they're great and awesome in all of the areas that you have something to fix, then they're not worth your time. And you shouldn't schedule a meeting with them, and you shouldn't take them out to lunch. So what you want to do is you want to learn a little bit more about your prospect in those areas. So for each pain point, you could compose 1 or 2 probing questions. So again, there's a full training module on this. These are the types of things that SalesScripter will help you with, because a lot of people often ask, does SalesScripter work with a particular industry? And the reality is it works with any product in any industry, because you're going to fill it out with your details. And so what the software does is it's going to take you through those 4 steps and help to, like, you could do that in a Word document, but when you do it in the software, it's more structured, and the software helps you to take you through that process. Oh, and by the way, each time you answer a question and put in your information's being used to populate a library of tools and documents. But the software is going to help you to develop your optimum list of questions. And again, that list of questions could be different for the different industries that you sell to or the different buyers you talk to. Tip 5 is to always be aware of the problems that you can help to fix for your particular buyer. You can use these common pain points when you're on the phone, in your emails. It's a great place to go when maybe a call, let's say a prospect just doesn't understand what you're talking about or how you can help, or you could use your pain points that you fix as your elevator pitch. You could use them as a last resort. So sometimes if you've ended up on a call and you've asked them questions and it's just not going anywhere, you could just say to them, hey, listen, all right, it sounds like you're doing pretty good over there, but these are 3 things that people like you often struggle with. And so do you have challenges with this, this, or this? And if they say no, then you can say, okay, well, I tell you what, I'm going to let you get back to it. So what you want to do is you want to develop your optimum list of pain points for each buyer. And again, SalesScripter, like I told you, SalesScripter is going to take you through those 4 steps. Well, and step 3 of building out your questions is to identify the pain points that you fix. So SalesScripter is going to take you through that. Moving on, tip 6 is to don't sell the product, sell the conversation. At every step of the sales process and every conversation, you have 2 goals. Your ultimate goal is to sell the product. You're a salesperson, you're a business owner. This is indisputable. And you probably think about your ultimate goal every day. And you're thinking about your ultimate goal in every time you talk to a prospect. But the reality is that at every point, you have an immediate goal as well. Your immediate goal is to advance the prospect to the next stage of your sales process. Now, there are some times where the next stage of your sales process is a formal close and purchase. For example, you might have a one-call close type of product. In that case, if you're on your one call, then your ultimate goal and your immediate goal are kind of the same thing. But in most cases, especially when you're doing inside sales and phone prospecting, your immediate goal is not going to be selling the product, especially on the more difficult calls, like when you're first calling someone for the first time. So if you look here on this slide, there's these 3 stages, and so you kind of have the initial contact. The initial contact could be a cold call, it could be an email as well. So what I think people often fall into is, yes, they know that, okay, I'm trying to set appointments, but they fall into the trap of always sort of leaning towards trying to build enough interest so the prospect wants to buy. If you kind of go back to that email example that I gave you, you could argue that that person wrote that email really focusing on the ultimate goal, talking about, that it's fast and inexpensive, talking about really scheduling some time. Uh, he probably worded it okay. Maybe he said schedule some time to see how we can help you, but really, he was trying to close the sale, or at least he was trying to set an appointment, but he's really trying to close the sale. Let me give you a better example. I get emails all the time for, let's say, someone selling payroll services. Well, I do use a payroll provider, and there are times where I may want to look at making a change with something like that. I often get an email with someone saying, "Are you looking to switch payroll providers?" And that's the email. So what they're doing is they're trying to close the sale in that email, or they could do it similarly on a phone call. And the reality is that they're skipping ahead to their ultimate goal, and the odds of them catching me at the particular time where I'm looking to buy are fairly low. So they stand to improve their results by shifting from the ultimate goal of selling the product and focusing more on the immediate goal, which is typically to establish the conversation. So, and that could be like in the diagram here, the second step would be the what you're trying to close, which in this case it's a conversation, it could be an appointment or a meeting. So that should be the focus. Now I want to show you something that's really powerful on this. An example of how powerful this is that when you're phone prospecting, especially working in inside sales, you're going to get objections like, "I'm not interested, we don't have any budget, we can't change anything right now," right? Those are good objections when you're going for your ultimate goal of closing the sale. If they don't have budget to spend, and that's a legitimate reason for them not to buy your product. But if you're focused on the goal of having a conversation, the fact that they don't have money to spend is not a valid objection. And you could even reply to them explaining that. Like, I've gotten that objection, "Well, we don't have any budget to spend." Hey, you know what? Hey, listen, I understand. But listen, and I'm not saying that we would come out and put together a proposal or spend a lot of our time or your time, keeping in mind that you don't have budget to spend. But we're simply wanting to have a conversation with you guys to learn a little bit more about you, share a little bit of information about us. That way, when your budget does open back up, let's say next year, or when you're doing your budget planning later in this year for next year, you can know who we are and how we can help. And so for us to come out and spend 20 to 30 minutes with you, knowing that you don't have any budget, that would be productive for us, and we would be cautious not to take any more of your time than that, and then we can determine later at what pace to continue our conversation. So just showing you that when you're focusing on the right goal, which is the immediate goal, you can improve your ability to deal with objections, which is actually the next tip. So a lot of these tips are actually related, but the tip 7 is to have responses for anticipated objections. So I own my own business today, and I'm with SalesScripter today. But before I was an entrepreneur, I worked for 6 different sales organizations. 6 different companies, probably more sales organizations internal to those companies. But I can honestly tell you that it wasn't until the last company that I worked for where I got training on how to deal with objections. All those organizations, they never taught me how to deal with objections. And just so we're on the same page, objections are, "Hey, I'm busy right now. Who are you with? What is this in regards to? Just send me some information. We already use somebody. We're not looking at making any changes right now." These are common objections to you and I, even knowing you and I work for different companies. Now, there's about like 7 or 8 or so standard objections that we all face. And then you could probably add to that about 5 unique objections to you. Let me give you an example of a unique objection. So an objection that I get for SalesScripter is we don't like using scripts, and we believe that scripted salespeople aren't good. That's an objection that we get. Now, so that's a unique objection to me that you'll never face. But we both get the objection of we don't have any budget, to spend right now. So, but where I'm going with this is that there's really only between around 10 objections that are going to consistently come up. So why not have a response for those objections prepared. And I look back and I just can't believe that I didn't get more training in my career for objection. So I'm really passionate on having something prepared. So that's something that actually Sales Scripter helps you with as well. We actually provide a tool called an objections map, and it'll have that tool will. What we're able to do is we're actually able to give you responses to objections, because in our methodology, we don't want you to resolve an objection, meaning like if they say I'm not interested, we don't necessarily want you to try to make them interested, because we think that's not the right way to go when you're prospecting. We want you to get around the objection. So I don't remember the tip offhand, but about 3 tips earlier was to have a list of pre-qualifying questions always. So those pre-qualifying questions are great responses to objections. So someone says I'm not interested, instead of saying, oh well, let me use what was in that email that I shared with you. Oh, but we've been developing this for 3 years, and there's nothing like this out there, and we're fast and we're to deploy and we're inexpensive. Okay, so that would be someone trying to make me interested when I said I'm not interested. We don't want you to do that. Someone says I'm not interested, ask one of your pre-qualifying questions. So, oh, yeah, I'm not interested. Oh, yeah, I understand. Hey, listen, if I could ask you real quick, do you feel like your salespeople always know what questions to ask when they're talking to prospects? So that's a question I ask sales managers when they tell me they're not interested. That's a good response when someone says we don't like using scripts. Hey, I understand, but if I could ask you, if you guys don't use scripts, you have all these people on your team, do you feel like when they're on the phone or they're in appointments, how confident are you that your salespeople, in the heat of the moment, that they think of the right questions to ask? And so I just sit there, and then they're going to answer. They're going to say, I think they're great. Okay, well, how do they? And I can either follow up their answer with a deeper follow-on question, or I could go to another question, or they might give me a beautiful answer. They might say something like, I'm not sure. I mean, I hope that they do, but I'm not there, and I don't really know what they are asking, to be honest with you. So, oh, well, that's why I'm reaching out, because I want to show you something. I want to show you something that can help you to just make it real easy for them to know what questions to ask. And, can I put 20 minutes on your calendar next Tuesday morning? So, anyways. There's a whole module on objections, so I'd encourage you to watch that on YouTube. Tip 8 is have a game plan for how to deal with gatekeepers. So one of the objections, well, actually, let me just show you. Again, these tips that I'm showing you are designed to make a big impact, and I said transform your game. And one of the reasons that this is one of the tips is because if you're doing a lot of phone prospecting, you work in inside sales, you're dealing with gatekeepers a lot. You could spend up to half your time talking to gatekeepers, and the another big chunk of your time getting prospects' voicemails. And it's actually a smaller sliver than this where you actually end up talking to prospects. But if you want to make small changes that have big impacts, simply stop and think about how you deal with the gatekeepers. I mean, maybe do you feel like, you can't answer this, but the question I would have for you is, do you feel like you are good at maintaining and improving gatekeeper relations? You typically have conflicting objectives and interests with a gatekeeper. You have the goal of getting in, and in more cases than not, they have the goal and objective of keeping you out. So when you reach your goal, they're typically not achieving their goal. So, there's this conflict there. How good are you at dealing with that? Not just how good are you at achieving your goal, but how good are you at managing those relationships? If you watch the news, there's a lot of politics in the news. How good of a diplomat are you at in that situation? So what I would say is, stop to stop and improve that area. have a big impact on your results because of the proportion of time that you find yourself in that situation. And you may think, well, I mean, I try to be myself and I try to be nice. What more can I do? Well, the reality is that there are small things you can do. And so we outlined those in a full module on how to consistently get around gatekeepers. But let me give you an example of what small change you could make. Gatekeeper, and this one tip right here could help you if you are on the phone every day and you do interact with gatekeepers. Because a gatekeeper's favorite objection to screen salespeople out is they ask, what is this in regards to? And the reason why they ask this is because they don't necessarily need to understand who you are and everything that's going on with you. They just need to know, are you a salesperson trying to sell something? Okay? And as soon as they determine that, they know that it's okay to get rid of you. And to be honest with you, they don't necessarily want to they don't want to block people out that they should be letting in. So this is a really effective question at triggering, identifying salespeople trying to sell something. So they'll say, what is this in regards to? And if you answer it with anything that's honest or a direct answer, you might say something like, well, I'm calling to introduce our company. I'm calling to schedule an appointment. I'm calling to learn more about what you guys are doing in this particular area. I'm calling to see if you guys need such and such. Anytime you answer with anything like that, they go, oh, okay, well, we don't need anything. We're not interested. We don't take sales calls. Let me dump you into one of our supplier voicemail boxes. So they shut you down. So here's something very small and very easy. I already talked to you about developing your elevator pitch, which is a one sentence, could be your value statement. That's a great response to this objection. So they say, what's this in regards to? Well, the reason why I'm reaching out to you is we actually work with sales managers, and we help them to shorten the amount of time it takes for them to train new salespeople. That's one of my elevator pitches. And so I'm going to say that, and I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to sit there. And I'm going to let the next person that speaks is going to be the gatekeeper. Now, what I want to point out is that that answer that I gave them, him or her, is not going to make them go, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and we actually need that. And let me put you through to so-and-so. It's not going to do that, and I'm not going to make any promises that it does. What it does not do is that it does not give the gatekeeper the key thing that they're looking for, which is the flag to go up that says, I'm a salesperson. It just doesn't give them that. It's like a curveball. It'll leave them kind of confused. And so what they either might do is they may either ask you another question, or they might sometimes just put you through. Anyway, so just give it a shot, and that and other gatekeeper objections are explained in that training module, so I'd encourage you to watch that. Tip 9 is to use some sort of call cadence. So cadence is another word for rhythm, and call cadence is, what is the rhythm that we're using in terms of how frequently are we going to call someone? What is the mix of email and calls? When do we email? When do we call? How long do we wait? I want you to have clarity of, if I email the contact on this day, my next step is going to be this, and it's going to be in this amount of time. So if I send an email, my next email is going to be in so many days, or my next call is going to be in so many days. So not only do I want you to have some sort of structure, but you want to have a tight structure. So 3 weeks is too wide. You want to have a very condensed attack and penetration of calls and emails. That could differ from the type of business you sell to, the types of contacts you're dealing with, and you might want to adjust for yourself. We do provide a call cadence structure that you could get some ideas from. This diagram right here is actually in an ebook that you would have received when you signed up for this webinar. and it's a call cadence, and it basically breaks down your approaches into like 4 rounds of pursuing a prospect with a mix of calls and emails and voicemails and calls, receiving voicemail without leaving voicemail messages. But what I would say to you is, first of all, so the two sub tips of this tip is, one is have some sort of structure and logic, and then two, you probably want that focus to be tighter than what you first think, meaning you probably want to be calling that prospect and emailing them more than you might think that you should. So you really, you want to stand out from the noise. There's actually a whole webinar on where this diagram is presented. It's called How to Operate in a World Where Prospects Don't Answer Their Phone. So you might want to check that out. The last tip is to have some sort of call guide and playbook. And I told you one of the objections that I run into is we don't want our salespeople reading from a script. And so let me say that we agree with that objection. We don't want your salespeople, or we don't want you reading from a script either. We do feel like you can improve your results by being prepared. And you can use a script or a call guide or a playbook to be more prepared and to have that in front of you and to use it as a guide for what to say, but we don't want you reading from it, by no means. And if you stop to think about the tips that we've given you here today, we've given you some stuff that you should say when you talk to prospects. We talked about having an elevator pitch, having some key questions to ask, being aware of what problems you resolve for your particular buyer. And if you really use our methodology, those problems will be different when you go from different buyers from one to another. My buyers of sales manager versus salesperson, they have different problems. A sales manager is trying to hire and train and motivate and decrease turnover. A salesperson is trying to make their job easier, get results, make more money, not get fired. So different pain points. So when you start looking at it that way, there's a lot of different problems that you might need to be aware of. So it's hard to have all this floating around in your head. Something that we didn't discuss was the next point here, company and product points. This isn't one of the tips, but we also recommend that you have a very tight focus of really powerful, effective key company points and product points. And we have in our methodology tips for how to create those. But these are all items, and your objection responses, these are all items that you could have in your call guide. I mean, whether you want to call it a script or a guide, if you really don't feel comfortable with using a script, let's call it a guide. And so this is actually one of the documents that comes out of our software. And if you'll look at it, it is more of a guide. I mean, it's divided into sections. Here are your questions. Here are your common problems to mention. And mostly it's bullet points, and you could read from it exactly, but you can just have it in front of you to allow you to not forget the questions asked. And I can actually admit to you that as recent as in the past 6 months, I've been on a call with a prospect, and I invented software on scripting. I have that software loaded up with a script for myself. I have written a book on cold calling. I've written ebooks on cold calling and phone prospecting. And I can tell you that I've been on calls where I have not had my call script or my call guide in front of me, and I did not ask the right questions, and I did not get the most out of it, and I hung up that call thinking I might have missed an opportunity there. And that's happened as recent as the past 6 months. And so my message there is, it doesn't matter. It's not just for inside sales versus outside sales. It's not for new salespeople versus and experienced salespeople don't need it, or veterans of the company don't need it. We can all benefit from having the key questions and key points in front of us. So that's one format that SalesScripter actually displays your content in. We actually also display in another view, kind of like a single pane of glass view. We call this an interactive script because it displays everything sort of in one window. You have your whole call script there. You have your objection responses on the right, objections, and then objection responses on the right accessed. You have your voicemail scripts here. Everything you have is in this one view. So this is something that, like I said, you can do everything we've talked about here today in Microsoft Word, but what we do is we make it easier for you to extract all the knowledge from your head, organize it into different buyers and different campaigns, and then the software builds all these tools like emails and voicemail scripts and interactive scripts and call guides for you instead of having to have all these Microsoft Word documents. So that's kind of what we offer. But I'll just those are the 10 tips. And what I'll do is I will, looks like I'm right on time. So I said we'll spend 5 minutes on each tip. So we're at 50 past the hour. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes just to kind of explaining what we offer as a company. If you do want us to help you more and you like these tips, and then I'll open it up for questions. But what we provide is we basically provide what we call the SMART sales system. And so SMART stands for, so the S and the M stands for sales messaging. So a lot of, I guess, sales managers hire people based on their personality, and they teach them about the product, and they sort of hope that they go out and they say and ask the right stuff. We're real big on your words are your most powerful sales tool. If you make 100 calls a day, but you're not saying the right stuff, you could have 0 results. It's not like digging a ditch where if you might be holding the shovel wrong, but you're going to get some amount of dirt with each stroke, so you'll get there sooner or later. It doesn't work that way in selling. So we believe in optimizing and improving results by saying the most powerful pitch, communicating the most effectively. And the R is actually response. So it's not just about saying the right elevator pitch and asking the right questions. It's also how you respond to those questions. So I started to think about the response aspect when I had a client and I helped him to develop the best list of probing questions. He worked in a software business, and we actually fit really well with technology and software. So I helped him to develop this great list of questions, and he came back to me. He said the questions aren't working, and he said because they would say the prospect would say this, and then I didn't know what to do. So it's not just about asking the right questions; it's about what to do with the response. Because when you ask a question and a prospect responds, you have different directions you can go. You can drill into that question by asking a follow-up question. You could move on to your next question, or you know what, you could go for the close based on an answer. If I ask a prospect, how concerned are you about the amount of time it takes you to train new hires, and they say it takes too darn long, then I don't need to go through the rest of my pitch. I close that person right then for an appointment. Oh, it's interesting you say that. That's why I'm reaching out. We probably should talk, and because that's exactly what we help with. Let's meet next Tuesday for 20 minutes, and I think you're going to like what. So I don't have to go through my other questions so we're going to teach you how to respond not only to questions, but how to respond to objections and how to keep conversations going or how to close. And it's real everyday tactics. So a lot of sales managers that I work with are brilliant minds from a strategy standpoint. We're going to try to sell this product to this industry, and we're going to do this, and this is where we're going to invest in our sales team resources and do hiring. That's great strategy. But what we're going to provide you are the tactics. What are you going to say when that prospect answers the phone? What are you going to say when that gatekeeper says, just send me your info and I'll pass it along? Are you going to spend 20 minutes typing up your information and sending it over to where they delete it without even reading it? So we're going to give you the clear tactics. Now, we provide the smart system in 3 different ways. So the first piece is a sales methodology. So if you go to YouTube, there's actually a playlist called Smart Sales System Training Program. By the way, I've been telling you about other training modules on each tip today. All those training modules are right here on this playlist. So you can access our full methodology, and this is free on YouTube. So we actually provide the methodology piece at no cost through our YouTube channel, and also through ebooks that you've probably been emailed already that are completely free. We do have a book that you can purchase on Amazon for $15 called The Cold Calling Equation, and the reason why I would recommend buying the book either in addition to the ebooks or instead of the ebooks is that I would recommend you buy it in the paperback format and you keep it on your desk, because it's organized with a chapter on, there's like these tips here, there's a chapter for each tip. There's a chapter for questions, there's a chapter for objections. So you can dog tag the chapters and flip to them when you're having that problem or you want to work on a particular area. We deliver our methodology, so most of that's free. We do deliver the training. You can hire us to deliver live training virtually or in person, and we can customize that as well. Now, a lot of the methodology we provide for free, because where we make our money and our business model is to get you to use our software. And so we have 2 applications, Sales Scripter, which kind of helps with the scripting and the building of the sales pitch and the sales playbook. And then we have Sales Prospector, which is more of a CRM. It actually has a gamification feature, has lead scoring and all sorts of different stuff. So software platform. And then the third leg of this stool is professional services. So if you do use our software or want our help with building your pitch or building your scripts or getting your ducks in a row or building out your team or whatnot, we provide sales consulting. And we typically work with businesses or sales manager from a sales consulting standpoint. And then we work a lot with sales managers or frontline salespeople one-on-one from a sales coaching standpoint. So we'll help you, work with you on a weekly basis, help you to get your pitch together, get you doing the right stuff, get you past some of your challenges and take advantage of some of your opportunities. So that is what I wanted to share with you here today. Here's my contact info if you have any questions. And let's see, we have